And so I go track my bride down, and she's at a dance at the clubhouse. There's a Valentine's Day dance. And I ask her outside to go for a walk, and there's a big full moon. I'm setting the scene like it's a Hollywood thing. And I'm telling you, it was really like this. It's a full moon, and I'm asking her to get married outside an NA clubhouse under a full moon, with like a year clean or something. That's how it went.
Oh, and she said yes.
It's time for the SHAIR Recovery Podcast, where we bring you amazing life-changing success stories from addicts and alcoholics all over the world who share their inspiring journey in recovery. And now, here's your host, O.
On today's episode of the SHAIR Podcast, we have Dr. Harold Jonas joining us on the show. And Dr. Jonas has extensive experience with web development and award-winning app development since 1999. He's responsible for the concept, design, and launch of multiple directories serving the addiction and recovery community, including Sober.com, RecoveryRoommates.com, and InterventionStrategies.com, just to name a few. Two of his most recent apps for the addiction and recovery space received national recognition and prestigious awards. Today, Dr. Jonas shares his story with us. And what you'll find in his story is it's a little more lighthearted than some of the other stories we've had. He doesn't go so much into details about the war stories. What we do is we spend quite a bit of time discussing his recovery. So let's dive into Dr. Jonas' story. But first, since this is the first episode of 2017, I just want to wish all the SHAIR Podcast fans out there a Happy New Year's. It warms my heart so much to see so many people posting in the SHAIR Podcast private accountability group the success they had this year in staying clean and sober another New Year's. Or, in some cases, for the first time in a very long time. It's amazing to see the progress that so many people have made. And we do this together. I was not able to do this alone. I need my friends in the fellowship, in my home group, in the meetings, on the Facebook group, all the listeners, my guests. The family that we have managed to put together is nothing short of a miracle. For me, 2016 was a tough year. It was a lot of work, and there's no way I could have done it without all of you, and certainly not without recovery and my higher power. So once again, Happy New Year's and HP baby to all you guys. I love you all. God bless. And now on to the show. But first, if you would like to know the best way to show your support for the SHAIR Podcast, here are a few ways you can help. First, go to www.theshairpodcast.com, and there you can sign up for our free newsletter, which will let you know every time a new episode of the SHAIR Podcast comes out. You can leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes or Stitcher Radio. If you would like to know other places that you can listen to the SHAIR Podcast, you can listen to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. If you would like to donate to the SHAIR Podcast, you can do so via PayPal, or you can support us on Patreon. We have a thriving Facebook group that grows daily and has massive participation. Again, it's a private group, so if you would like to discuss recovery, share your experience, strength, and hope, help others, or lean on others for support, be sure to join the Facebook private group. And all of this information can be found on the website. So go to the website, and there you will find all the information that you need to help support the show. So now a quick message from our sponsors, and on to the show. Sober Nation is the largest online recovery community and treatment resource center. They provide treatment resources to those struggling with addiction, as well as to the family members who are caught in the crossfire. On top of that, Sober Nation is a huge community of good people who share their experience with each other. They have informative content, recovery and addiction news, as well as an entire clothing line which helps expand the culture of recovery. They can easily be found at www.sobernation.com. Sober Nation is putting recovery on the map. Hey, Jonas, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Omar, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate the invitation.
My pleasure. I'm excited to have you on the show today. How are you feeling?
I'm still pretty tired. Everything in my body hurts from preparing for the storm. As I just was sharing prior to our starting, I'm in South Florida where the Category 4 Matthew is getting ready to visit here any minute. So we're all sitting tight and praying that things are going to be okay when we wake up in the morning.
Oh, man, that is nerve-wracking and terrifying. And I feel for you, man. I feel for you. Let's hope everything comes out beautifully.
Yeah, we're all safe. I got my sister lives here down in one of her houses. My daughter, so we're all hunkered down. We're shuttered up, and plenty of food and snacks and generators and gas and the whole deal. We've been through this with Wilma, 10 years ago. So we're not new. We're not rookies anymore.
I got you. Okay, well, now you guys are prepared. All right, so let's get started. So, folks, today we have Dr. Harold Jonas joining us on the SHAIR Podcast. His is a powerful story of transformation from this former heroin addict who turned his life around, got his PhD, and is now a top tech entrepreneur using mobile technology to battle the growing opioid addiction epidemic. Does that sound about right, Jonas?
That's pretty good. Nice summary. Thank you.
All right, so let's dive right in. First of all, Jonas, take us into your normal daily routine, including recovery.
Well, again, when you're in recovery, and what I learned is that you have to make the same decision every morning, that no matter what happens during the course of a day, I'm not going to use no matter what. So I still have that conscious contact with a power greater than myself that I choose to call God, and make that same decision in the third step. It's like, no, I made a decision. I'm going to turn my will, my life over, and that's how it rolls. So, that's basic stuff. And what I've learned in recovery is that if we don't move away from the basics, we never have to ever struggle to go back to them.
Right. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about how you maintain your spiritual condition on a daily basis.
Well, again, it starts in that morning prayer, and then when I'm doing my workout and exercising, because as we age, we have to work a little harder to get moving in the morning. I'm doing yoga, I'm doing stretches, and I'm getting a conscious contact through meditation to get that spiritual kind of fitness in place to meet the challenges of the day. And there are many throughout the day, since the days are a lot longer. Again, the older we get, the less we seem to sleep or need sleep. So, when you're working on 5 hours, there's a lot of conscious contact going on.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. So how much clean time do you have, and when is your anniversary date?
Well, it's interesting that you asked. I'm coming up on an anniversary here on November 1st. So many years ago, in a land far, far away called Camden, New Jersey, I had a stranger approach me. Can I say that loosely, because I hadn't seen this person, who happened to be my father, track me down and find me, and this was in October 1987. And he found me where I was, my last place of employment there in that area of the country. And ironically, he had been hanging out in Costa Rica for many, many years prior to his arrival, finding me in Camden, and offered me an opportunity to come to Florida, where he had relocated. And that was then, and I finally got off the plane in like mid-October, say October 12, 15, 1987, and went into a treatment center. And, I don't know what day it was, so I just count November 1st, 1987 as my date of recovery.
Wow, so we're talking how many years now?
I think that makes 29 coming up.
Wow, unbelievable, man. So with 29 years coming up, do you still go to regular meetings? Do you have a regular meeting you go to?
Oh, yeah. Like I said, the basics are the basics. And I've been going to the same home group since 1987, well, early 88. I go to one meeting a week, and that is my home group since, since I had 27 years clean, because I switched my we switched my work schedule to be evenings, so there wasn't any day meetings in my area. And we started one, and I was a participant in starting a day meeting. And then this Saturday night evening basic text group is the one I go to and have been for many, many years. And it's real simple. We read out of the book, and, everything else is just opinions, because the answers can be found in the text and literature, as we all know.
Absolutely. So when did the whole idea of coming up with this opioid addiction mobile application? So what is, tell us a little bit about your mobile app.
Okay, well, there's some history behind that, I'll just talk as fast as I can, and you interrupt me if I'm taking up too much time. So I started supportive housing in 1995, which means I didn't want to do a true halfway house because I don't really believe in the rules. There's plenty of rules in society, and so I set it up to where there was a lot of autonomy, and we called it a recovery residence, and gave people a lot of guidelines to work with. And what happens in places like that is people have a tendency to be non-compliant, and they start using again because, again, we're dealing with people in early recovery who are addicts.
Right.
So being in the human services and in healthcare and basically in the field as an addictions counselor, we needed a place to refer them because we didn't want them on the street, because that's the whole idea, is to help them stay off the street. So I started an electronic directory in 1999. I started programming it with a team. I called it soberhouses.com. It grew a national directory of supportive housing throughout the country, because then people could find additional places to go, because there was no print directory as far as I could find. So I started the Sober Houses site, and it grew and morphed into a full continuum of care. And I started an acquisition tear of domain names. I got sober.com under my control, and we morphed this site into something big and expansive. And again, we were running on an advertising model. So I still operate sober.com today. That's a good 15-year run of operating an online directory for the best clinical and financial fit. So now to drive traffic, there's a number of ways to drive traffic to your website. And as a clinician, I decided to do online counseling and online coaching back in 2004. Got it online 2005 and started training recovery coaches way back then, 2006, driving traffic, providing free coaching to anybody that wanted it as an experiment. Now, again, we're working with, modems back then at 28.8 and 56.6.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I was really ahead of the curve here, like really, trying to put this in play to drive traffic and get people to come on board to do internet-based services, which was still before telehealth was what it has become and morphed into. So we called it Sobersystems. And then, as again, the evolution of business and the technology and everything moving very, very go fast, and watching people come out with iPhones and use iPhones to text and talk to each other, I said, well, I got to make this thing mobile because I'm way behind. They're not even using desktops are a joke. Laptops are already too bulky. Then they, started with phones. So we went mobile in 2012 with Sobersystems, and it morphed it into a platform that is basically able to be adapted to any medical or behavioral health diagnosis to treat and hold people accountable, and we call it the Flex Deck. And Sobersystems is the flagship product that goes under that, basic technological platform. So that's how it's certainly evolved to be where it is now. The opioid challenge that you speak of in the question came from SAMHSA. Our government here in the States, is a big conglomerate of different agencies, but SAMHSA is the one that regulates all the money. And they put out a contest to get an app in place to deal with the opioid epidemic. And so I adapted the Flex Deck to meet the standards of the rules of the contest and submitted it. And we were, again, named first prize, grand prize winner of the contest with the MAT edition. So they wanted something that was going to be available for people on medication, people that are still taking methadone, people still taking Suboxone to deal with their opioid issues until they choose, or maybe not, to choose to get off it, which is not what the app is really for. It's really an accountability app to give them the support and the opportunity to be able to have people in their life, like a recovery coach, to help them prevent relapse and going off that proverbial cliff by not taking their medicine.
Right. Now, is there a cost for the app?
No. The app is free.
Okay.
Listen to this concept. I figured out a way, right, to train coaches for free in exchange for an internship of 6 months. They're going to provide free coaching and free professional services to anybody that wants to use this app, which is also a free download. So all they have to do is fill out the questionnaire on the app on a daily basis and qualify for rewards, which is free coaching. And if they do it long enough, they can become free training to become a coach so they can start to earn a living. And everybody wins. that's the whole deal, is that part of this process here is to attract users to the app, to let people know that there is a free tool out there that they can get free services from, and all they got to do is download it, put it on their phone and use it, and then click a button, and they're going to be able to talk to a live recovery coach.
So this app, the Flex Deck?
Mat Edition. Flex Deck Mat Edition.
Flex Deck Mat Edition. And so any addict gets in this app. It's an accountability app, and you fill out every day a questionnaire.
Correct. Yep.
And then after X amount of time, or after filling out X amount of these questionnaires,
same questions every day, just like the steps. They don't change. The questions are: Did you use today? Did you take your medicine? Blah 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 blah. There's like a half a dozen questions, and they click yes, 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 and they earn points, and they trade the points in for free coaching.
Okay, and so then they get the free coaching, and then they themselves can learn to be coaches too?
Absolutely. They can click another button and you want to get trained, and we'll train them. All online. Everything's online. Everything's on their phone.
That is fantastic, and all for free.
All for free? Well, they already paid the price. Come on, they already paid a big price.
Man, and this is a great way for people to do so much, especially in early recovery, because there's a lot of people that once they kind of get on that pink cloud, they get sober and they get clean and they get on the pink cloud, and it's like, what can I do? Yep. I want to get involved, man.
Yep.
And they want to start their own meetings, and they want to open up a rehab center, and they want to
be a therapist.
Yeah, they want to be a therapist, right? Big lofty goals, right? And then, to be a therapist, like, oh man, I got to go to school.
Right.
Ooh, so this is a great way to get involved. You're participating in your own recovery, and then quickly you can also, through this app, become a therapist. I love it. I think this is great.
So all I'm looking for now is I'm putting out a video, basically a PowerPoint. I'm looking for corporate sponsors to help underwrite this.
Got it.
The people that do the medication manufacturing, that make Suboxone, the people that make Methadone, the people that make Narcan, those are the people that can help assist by, sponsoring the users of the app and the coaches, so we can really make a dent and move the needle and reduce opioid addiction and overdoses. That's the most critical thing, because where I'm at, people are dying every day, and that's just not an unusual occurrence across the country, because they're lacing the heroin up here with fentanyl.
Oh God!
I do, man. They're dropping like flies, like 8 to 10 people a day. There was one place they did this crazy drug. It was like they described it like The Walking Dead. All these people were walking around like bumping into each other. I'm not sure if it was from the heroin that they were doing, or they were using bath salts or whatever, but it was just an insane kind of episode in this one community. It was just like a TV show, they said. So it's bad. It's a significant problem. No, I don't use numbers and statistics, because you can skew them and make them say whatever you want. All we do know evidence-wise is that every police call in my community that goes out, they tell us it's a $10,000 ride for the truck, the officers, and the paramedics to go rescue an overdose.
Got it. Okay, all right. And how long has the app been out?
No, it'll be rolling out November 1st, right around my anniversary. I'm going to a conference to present it. It's the American Association for the Treatment of Opioid Dependence. Big conference here. So we're going to get my award there, and I'm going to do a 20-minute presentation on the features of the app, and we're going to videotape it and put it up on the website so people can look at it as a reference and get a clear idea of what we're trying to accomplish. And again, we're just trying to move the needle. We're not going to extinguish this problem with an app. We're going to maybe make a dent, which is the realistic kind of goal.
Yes. Well, any help is welcome. I mean, like you were saying, it's such a horrific epidemic, and it's just getting worse and worse. The first time I heard about them lacing heroin with fentanyl, I just thought, wow, they're just a recipe for disaster on a massive level.
Yeah, it's huge. And then, I don't know if you heard about the carfentanil down there, but the joke on the street is like, when you're using drugs like that and you're using heroin, it's like, dude, man, this could stop an elephant. This stuff is so powerful, it can stop an elephant. And what do you think they found? They found the elephant tranquilizer called carfentanil, which is like this derivative. And it's literally 2 milligrams of this stuff stops a 2,000-pound elephant. Right? So they're they're lacing the heroin with this stuff. They're not even getting the syringe out of their vein before they're dead. And when people go out and get hit with Narcan on this stuff, it sometimes is taking 2 or 3 doses of Narcan to wake them up. I mean, that's and it's just absolutely amazing because, what happens with an opioid overdose is you have no recollection of what happened. You have none at all. There's no imprint in your brain that says you overdosed and you better not do it again, because you wake up from an overdose of Narcan and you wake up and go get more.
Well, here's what I don't understand. If it's something that's so powerful and it kills people, it behooves me to imagine that, well, I don't know if drug dealers are just that ridiculously stupid, but if you're killing your customer base, what benefit is in that? I don't get that.
And then you can get into all those government conspiracies, right? Do you remember all those? That they're doing this just to thin the population, and it's all run by the DEA. I mean, just crazy stuff that you hear on the street.
Oh, man.
The logic of anybody putting a strange substance like that in their body goes without saying is crazy. It's totally irrational. You're buying it from somebody who's not a certified pharmacist, and they're saying, dude, this is great. It'll take care of business. And you just say, oh, yeah, okay, fine. And then you go into the bathroom at Dunkin' Donuts and you don't come out.
Correct.
That's what's going on.
Okay. Well, not for nothing. It may be a little, paranoia or a conspiracy theory or whatever you want to say that it is. It does make sense, because why would anyone do something like this? It makes no sense.
No. But then again, neither does addiction, so to speak,
No.
So it's like, I hear you and I agree. And you don't say, oh, yeah, the guy down the street, let me go get you some, or let's go get some together and we'll do it. And now there's Narcan stuff. Well, it's now naloxone. They're like, people are using that as an enabling system to stay actively using, because, they carry it around. You can almost get it on the street. And you can basically, it's like Pulp Fiction,
Right,
where
right. You OD and then yeah, okay.
Yeah. Your friend has an Narcan. Who's got the naloxone? And then that's what they're doing to each other. It's so much different than when I was out there. And again, it's been almost 30 years since I was on the street running around doing that. And it was certainly nothing like this.
No.
Nothing like this. There was some camaraderie around people in galleries doing what we were doing, looking out for each other. Now it's like, dog eat dog in a lot of ways.
Correct. Well, you know what? I think we've gotten the gist of, what your app is supposed to do and what it's hoping to do. And, for those of us listening out there, we certainly hope it makes the kind of impact that it needs to make moving forward starting November 1st. But let's go back in time now. Let's talk about those 30 years back where you were out there gunning and running. Tell us a little bit about the first time you drank or used drugs, and more importantly, how they made you feel.
In my home growing up, alcohol was the prevalent chemical, and my father was one to share, a very generous guy in many areas of his life, including his alcohol. And so the tradition was that he would make us a highball. That's what they called them back then, in the 60s, for New Year's Eve. Now, I was still single digits, like, 8 or 9 years old, and we would get a highball. And I think it was VO, but I don't even know. All I know is that it was foul. It was horrible. It was foul, and I didn't really drink it. It made me sick. And my sister drank it. See, my older sister drank mine and hers. And ironically, she's not an addict. I was introduced to marijuana at 12 years old, and then I fit in my family because everybody was using the chemical but me. So I ran crazy with marijuana, for many, many years, up until the fact that, towards the end of my addiction, I really couldn't use it without being cuckoo. I found myself going through the usual gamut of experimentation in adolescence. Marijuana led to the opportunity to use every other drug that was ever coming down the street. And then those I went looking for on other streets. So there's that whole range, from psychedelics to amphetamines to barbiturates, and settled on a nice little habit of alcohol, which I did learn to drink subsequently later on, alcohol, marijuana, and cocaine, until some things happened in my life at like age, 27, 28. My marriage came apart, and everything else came apart thereafter, after like having 2 children, and was introduced to opiates earlier from a wreck. I had a terrible accident that happened as a result of using drugs. At college, I severed one of my fingers off on a saw. So I was using all kinds of drugs and cut actually 3 of my fingers, but one of them I lost. And I was introduced to morphine, and I got off of morphine in the hospital and switched to marijuana, and they were like thrilled. Everybody was thrilled that I said, oh, yeah,
right.
I'm going to smoke pot instead for the pain, which was very, very effective, by the way, because I wasn't going to get hooked on heroin, or on morphine and Talwin and all the other opiates that were around. So my parents got me pot, which is very open-minded of them. They gave my friend money, and they got me pot, and I smoked pot, for my recuperation. So anyway, when this episode happened in 27, 28, the introduction to Percocet and then to Dilaudid was an easy segue. And from 28 to 33, I did nothing but deteriorate from a nice suburban business person with a failing marriage and 2 young kids to living on the street on a cardboard box shooting dope for a living.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I think we might have fast forwarded too much here, because what I normally do right after I ask the first question was, how old you were the first time you drank or used drugs, is from there we segue into your story. So you would tell your story the same way you would at a meeting, like if you were a speaker.
Yeah, well, you got the most of it, because when I go, and I don't want to be disrespectful to your concept, I usually summarize it in that quick amount of time because I really want to talk about what recovery has to offer.
Okay, well then let's dive into that.
We're all qualified to be there on whatever nonsense we put ourselves through, and it wasn't pretty, obviously, to live on a car, but I went from the park bench to Park Avenue, so to speak, in terms of and that all came from recovery. I mean, that's really what life is about, is when for me, getting off of that airplane and never looking back. The 20 years I used and self-destructed to get there is as colorful as the next person. Some of it's really pretty, some of it's really ugly, some of it's just what it is. It's
right. So what was the rock bottom moment that drove you into recovery?
I started to look for change in 1985. The guy that turned me on to the heroin and the Percocets and the Dilaudids right at that same critical episode at age 28 came to me. He's my friend I grew up with and used with. He showed up in my business, and he said, look, I just got out of treatment, and I want you to meet me at this address. We're going to go to a meeting, because he knew I was still using. He became a physician and got caught nodding out on the elevator with his anesthesia bag in the morning. And apparently he had many run-ins with his superiors until they finally, gave him the ultimatum in 85 to do this or lose his license. He was a new doc, and he was struggling as an addict. He'd been shooting dope for years. I don't know how he got through med school. So anyway, I go to this meeting, and he doesn't show up. He doesn't. I went into the meeting thinking he'll come in late or something. Never came at all. I sat through the meeting. I had just gotten on my first methadone clinic, and I'm thinking this is the best thing since sliced bread. I didn't chase any dope all day, and I didn't shoot any dope all day, and this is great. And so at the end of the meeting, they said, anybody have anything to say or anything you want to share? And I said, oh, yeah, I just said just like that. I didn't shoot any dope today. I got on methadone. They said, some dude takes me east side, and he says, come back when you're clean. Oh, my God. Come back. You know what? Okay, this is 1985. 2 years later. 2 years I was out. I got blown out of the water. I don't know who that guy was, but I remember those words echoing in my head to this day. And it took 2 more years of being out there before I crawled back and got reintroduced to recovery in 12 steps when I got into treatment. And I never forgot that, because that's one of the reasons I'm very supportive of anybody that's doing anything for themselves to improve the quality of their life. I don't care what it is.
Of course. So then 2 years go by, and I'm assuming you're still doing tons of opioids.
I would get anything I get my hands on. I mean, we're running Well, I don't want to incriminate myself, but we're doing the things we need to do to get high. Okay, we'll leave it at that.
Right.
Ways and means to get more. All that's going on in my life. In and out of jail, in and out of petty crime, in and out of just deterioration of values and deterioration of care and concern to whether I lived or not. Just a total person of inadequacy, and I couldn't even do anything right. I failed at marriage, failed at business, failed at being a parent, full of shame, full of guilt, and just full of hopelessness. So
then 2 years go by. Now, you've still got a resentment for the guy who said to you, come back when you're clean, but you still managed to crawl into, was it rehab or a 12-step meeting?
When I got off the plane, when my father offered to bring me to Florida, I went to a treatment center and got reintroduced to 12-step recovery through the treatment centers. Well, I went to 4 of them in a row from mid-October right on through the end of January or February, something like that. I was in an extended kind of model of treatment with different, more intensities and different places, along that route.
Yeah, and I can only imagine that because, I've been going to meetings for years too, and, especially when you're new and you have any sort of resentment, whatever issues you have with 12-step recovery. What was that like when you first came back in? Were you pissed? Were you vocal about it? Did you kind of go, hey, man, why would I be treated like this?
I asked a lot of questions, and I didn't have, I didn't really hold on to that. I was angry at life and angry at myself for many other reasons. So I had plenty of other anger issues going on for a long, long time. I smoked cigarettes for 25 years, it seems. No, let's see. I've been off of cigarettes almost 8 years. Something like that. So finally, I started to love myself a lot more. So I did hold on to that, but not to the point where I would ever use it as an exclusionary, because they told me, right, to look at the similarities and not the differences. So and so that was important for me to stay with. And I didn't go looking for that guy. He was in New Jersey and I was in Florida, so I moved on. But again, I used that as fuel for this app. And as a professional, again, my agenda for people is irrelevant compared to what their agenda is for them. And, that's how I view this. So medication-assisted treatment is real. Medication-assisted treatment is saturating meetings throughout the area I'm in. Some people are more comfortable talking about it than others. Most of them hide it, which is really sad because there's still a lot of ignorant people in the rooms that say, come back when you're clean.
And that's why I really wanted to kind of park on that for a minute, because this happens, right? You have, and the only requirement for membership is the desire to stop using. It doesn't say you have to be clean anywhere.
And wait, you're taking medication prescribed by a professional, no different than Prozac and no different than a vitamin from GNC that is self-prescribed by people who want to, do steroids. So, to me, it's just a bunch of crap. They're there because they want to improve the quality of their life, and this is an avenue they're exploring. And if they're on Suboxone or they're on methadone or they're on naltrexone, good for them. They're there. They earn their seat like everybody else.
Absolutely. Because let me tell you a couple of things, right? Now, because I've got a buddy of mine who just finished kicking, an opiate addiction straight up. Okay. He just locked himself in his backyard for 2 weeks.
That'll do it.
And just sweated and vomited and skin crawling and itching and the most.
Dude, your pubic hair hurts. Your nails on your toes hurt. It's just like that kind of phenomena.
But prior to that, he spent 10 years taking Suboxone.
Good. Wow, that's a pretty long run.
Exactly. So, the reason why I want to kind of stick, just before we move on here, is that I think it's so important that people listening to this right now, if you go to a meeting or if you talk to someone and somebody judges you or takes your inventory, get up and go to another meeting, because it's not about the message. It's purely the messenger that's destroying any hopes that people have. You come in already with this, we're egomaniacs with an inferiority complex. So you come in terrified, but you also have your ego, right? Because that's what has kept you out there using for all these years. All you need is somebody to tell you something that's off base and, I don't need this. I'm out of here. right? And then for you, 2 years. I mean, who's to say that from that meeting, somebody would have said, "You're home, brother. You're home. Just come on in, sit down. We'll walk you through this." This could have saved you 2 years of misery, and God only knows it could have killed you.
Well, and in the interim, I picked up hepatitis, and who knows what else I got. I don't have HIV, which is very fortunate because I was running around with some really crazy, shady people doing really crazy, shady stuff. So I got really fortunate that I only got diagnosed with hepatitis, which I didn't even know I had until I had an episode right before I was getting married here in recovery in 1989. And I got laid out with like an amazing, like near hospitalization of hepatitis, which of course has morphed into hepatitis C. So, I'm dealing with that, as we age and so forth. But I definitely agree that there's a lot of people that, still think that if you're taking lithium, you're not clean. So, there's some real and ironically, it talks about open-mindedness in the freaking preamble. It says, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. And here they are, a bunch of people who are like, if you're not abstinent, you're not really a member. I'm like, you know what? You need to sit down. You need to sit down and shut up because you just haven't read anything in this book yet. You want to get me started on that? I get really impassioned.
No, buddy, keep going. You have the floor here. Because listen, my Facebook group, all right, I have the SHAIR private Facebook group is loaded with these people, right? They're always posting in there about, oh man, I went to a meeting last night and so pissed me off, or somebody took my inventory, or somebody pointed out, is that going against their traditions? It's like, why don't you just sit there and shut the fuck up and mind your own business?
Yeah, pretty much. Look, you're sitting in a room with 100 of the most self-centered people in the whole world. Come on, shut up.
I remember I went home one day early in recovery, and somebody made a comment to me, and I was furious. And my wife at the time, who is now my ex-wife, she looks at me and she goes, "Okay, so you're upset, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I'm upset. This is ridiculous." He goes, "Isn't the guy a drug addict?" And I go, "Yeah." Okay, so, seriously, why would you take that so seriously? And obviously, she's not in a program, so she looks at things from a normal person's perspective. She's not looking at it from the addict who's got a chip on his shoulder, who will take anything, any excuse to go off the rails. This is just, for nothing else, it's just a cautionary tale that this kind of shit happens. We're all human beings. We're all just garden variety drug addicts trying to get clean one day at a time. And sometimes we say shit that we shouldn't say, period.
No.
Do not take it personally. Do not go out and use over it. Talk to somebody else. Go to a different meeting. Try something else. There's this, what are the other ones now? You can go to a treatment center. You can go to, I think what is the other? There's a few other things.
Different pathways. There's the whole there's faith-based work. There's Celebrate Recovery. There's Smart Recovery. There's NA. There's AA. There's CA. Just keep trying to find a pathway that fits and a home group that people are going to be open-minded truly and not like, there's always going to be somebody that's opinionated and judgmental. That's just life, there's just assholes in the world, and that's just what it is. You just learn to, just like you did when you were using, you stayed away from people like that.
Correct.
It's no different.
No.
When you're out there and somebody, knocked you down and took your drugs and your set of works, you didn't go back to that corner. You went somewhere else.
Absolutely. We're the most resilient beasts out there. Resilient. Doesn't matter what anybody says to us, we're not going to stop using. That's for sure. Why wouldn't we apply the same sort of tenacity when we're trying to get clean and sober?
Well, that's what they said. 10% of if you put 10% into your recovery, you put 100% into using, you'll not only get better, you'll stay better, and you'll have a happy, productive life.
Period. Absolutely.
Yep. 10%.
All right. So then walk us through your first year of sobriety.
Well, let's see. I was in a psychiatric hospital, right? And I asked them, I wanted to go into this, they had those little quiet rooms. And I said, I want to quit smoking cigarettes right now. I want to stop. And they said, oh, no, you don't want to do that. You one thing at a time. I'm like, what are you? I'm in a hospital. We're out. If I don't have any cigarettes, I can't smoke. It'll be fine. No, because they didn't want to have to work that hard.
Right.
The slackers. So anyway, They didn't have any clue on how to deal with me. So I'm standing at the fence, like I'm in that World War II movie. What the hell was the name of that? Was Steve McQueen? The Great Escape.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going to jump this fence and I'm going to run and I'm going to go and run and I'm not done and da-da-da-da-da. And there was this moment of clarity that happened to me, and I'm standing at the fence and I'm getting ready to go. And I don't know. I don't know if I looked up or I looked out. I just turned around and went back inside. And that was it. It was over. It was just over about whether I was going to use or not use or stay or go. It just, whatever that obsession was lifted at that moment. And I went back inside, a locked psychiatric hospital. I thought I was Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I'm in there and I'm dealing with this stuff and I never looked back. I never looked back. So I had this defining moment of early recovery and awareness. And I got guided in my first year through outside help from meetings to move into the direction of human services and to work on going back to school and being a therapist, which subsequently, I went and enrolled in graduate school for my master's right real early on, because I made a decision that this is what I was going to do. This was it, and there was nothing that was going to deter that. Now, I had 3 kids in New Jersey that were under 8 years old. I had an ex-wife. I had an armload of warrants and debt up my ass. And here I am enrolling in graduate school and determined to, carry a message of hope, of change. So it was a really good fit for me. And I met this beautiful, lovely woman who I married, who is, my soulmate. And we carried on now. We're married 27 years.
Wow. So basically, yeah, your entire sobriety.
Pretty much. I mean, I met her, I had about 5 months, and she 13-stepped me, which it took about 20 years for her to admit that out loud. It's a really great story.
Tell us.
Well, I went to a meeting, and there was this woman that shared her story, how people do, and I went up to her afterwards because she had mentioned that she was from Philadelphia. And I'm like, my ears perked up, and I went up to talk to her afterwards. And my first cousin happened to follow me to Florida, and he mentioned my name in our little kibitzing after the meeting. When I'm trying to put my game out on this girl, and because she was freaking smoking, and I'm up there, talking her up. And he says, Jonas, we got to go or something. And she says, wait a second. And she looks at me real close. And she says, I know who you are. We went to summer camp together as children, right, outside of Philadelphia. And you're the first boy I ever kissed.
Oh, my God. You have got to be kidding me.
That's the story she tells and sticks to it, bro. I'm telling you, that's the story she tells and sticks to it. And she's a couple years younger than me, and I was actually bunkmates with her brother, and I knew her then as a scrawny little kid. She was 7 years old. And what a woman she grew up to be. I'm like, well, you need to go away and stay away. I'm busy. I got to learn how to stay clean. I don't have time for this. And what's your phone number? And we managed. We worked really hard together to carry on an early recovery relationship. And I'll tell you what, if you want to learn how to work steps and traditions in your life, get in a relationship. Because if you don't, you're going to get buried.
That's for sure. So was that, wait a minute, did you actually kiss her?
At 9, I don't remember kissing her at 9, but I started making out with her as soon as I could. Let me tell you what.
That is amazing.
You know how they say, she had what I wanted.
So how much clean time did you have before you hooked up with her?
7 months.
Oh, well, that's not bad.
7 months.
Not bad. Okay.
She had, I think she has, let's see, she just celebrated 30 years in May.
Oh, man.
May 1st or May 29th, May 30th, somewhere. Her anniversary she just celebrated this year 30 years. So she's got like, a year and a half on me or something.
That is magnificent.
So it's all good. And again, like I said, we worked hard with outside help to make this marriage. We subsequently got engaged and got married and brought a child into the world together. So that made number 4 for me. And she became a mom, and I went to graduate school and became a therapist.
That's amazing. Unbelievably that is a great story.
It's a really good Hollywood story, and she tells it every year when we give each other medallions. She tells the story every year, and then she starts talking about, I knew him before, he had a mustache and a receding hairline, which she also happens to bring up on a repeated basis annually about how little hair I have left as I continue to grow old gracefully. And and it's evolved. The relationship is always evolving, and it's moving forward. It stops, it starts, it's ups and valleys and peaks and stuff, and it's happening.
And so, how long did it take for you guys to get married?
We got married in '89, August of '89, and then our son Jay was born in '91.
Wow.
February. And it was
fast.
I was 34, and already had kids and stuff, and she's a couple years younger than me, so she just turned 60. And so she was like, baby time. You want to get married to me? We're having a baby. I'm like,
absolutely. Yeah.
I'm like, what are you, out of your crazy? I can't even take care of myself. They told me in treatment I was immature. I was so immature. I was still in freaking Pampers. What are you talking about? And anyway, like I said, recovery. All I did was accelerate in like a rocket through recovery and growth and self-development and trying to make up for 20 years in 10 minutes.
Now, what about your relationship with your other 3 kids?
Well, my ex-wife saw the credibility, and she was always very supportive. And so they started to come to visit, in the summertime. And we developed some relationship, and they got to know their dad, and their new stepmom. And then one day, my ex-wife called me up and asked me if we would be interested in having custody of Jonathan, my oldest son. He's now 34. And so we took custody of Jonathan. He was 8 years old. He came to live with us. And then a couple years later, his sister, Ariella, she's now 36, she came to live with us. So we had custody, and Dawn, my wife, she raised those 2 kids, from childhood on up. And my other son stayed up north with my ex-wife, and she had another child named Sachi. So the kids were split up, and, we had 2 families. We had a blended recovery family because my ex-wife and my current wife talked and raised the kids together jointly, and she would come and stay with us, and they went through high school and college and all that stuff. It's been really very cooperative and very communicative.
Man, that is another miracle.
Those 3 kids, one's a pharmacist, one's a social worker with a master's degree, one's in business with me with an MBA. So, they're awesome. And my young one, Jay, is finding his pathway, through his own drug addiction. So he's still coming out of the weeds.
Okay. How old is he?
25.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds about right, man. I mean.
Yep. He's getting close. He's clean right now in a halfway house, so that's a good thing.
All right. Okay. So then, you've got 27. What is it? 27, 28 years coming up now.
29.
Okay. So you're coming up on 29 years clean, right? So that's the first few years. So then after that, and then you get your degree. How long did it take for you to get your PhD and your other certificates?
Oh, well, I finished the master's. I entered a 2-year program. It took me 6 because I had to work 2 jobs and do the family thing.
Right.
So it took, that took a little bit longer than I wanted. So I finished that in '96. I got licensed as a therapist. Then my father passed away, and I was able to go out on my own with a little bit of an inheritance. And I started going in business, and we had started the housing, and, it just took off from there. I got, made some really good decisions as far as investments and being able to make some money. And the website, did very, very well and financially, and because it's all, my whole life is recovery.
Right.
So my identity is all wrapped up in that. I went back and got a PhD, because I wanted to give the Sobersystems credibility that a doctor is promoting this tool. Doctor, you call somebody and say doctor or something, they answer the phone. It's amazing. It's amazing. You suddenly have instant respect because you have, doctor. So, okay, I should just wear a lab coat or something. So it worked. And so I got this PhD down there in St. Kitts Island through International University. And, I had to go and really work hard to make that happen. And again, running businesses and doing the doctorate. So, I've been using that to my advantage to get credibility for these apps I'm creating. again, to make a dent and to contribute in a large scale for the least amount of money, if any.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, God, I was just about to ask you a question, and I spaced. Oh, you'd spent time. Well, you've been in jail. You've been incarcerated. Did you ever do any, serious time? Did you have any felonies? Going into recovery.
Let's say that I never got caught for the felonies I committed. All time incarcerated is serious time. Let's qualify that.
Okay, fair enough.
All time is serious.
Fair enough.
The length of time, I'm very fortunate. The longest amount of time is many short spurts. I don't even know what the longest amount of time I was there, maybe 3 weeks. But 3 minutes is forever when you're locked up. Okay? Because, you got a damn heroin habit, you're going into withdrawals, you have nothing to work with. Nothing. So it's really, and it would make an imprint for about 15 minutes. As soon as the door opened, I'd go get a cigarette and go look for a bag of dope. Because again, when your self-esteem is up your ass, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't make an imprint like that. And so if there's no assistance, I'm trying to figure out a way to take my coaching curriculum into the prison system so people can start to look at, doing something productive other than, in addition to the education, are able to access and get out. And because that's what people are doing in there. There's always somebody that rises to be the one to go to. There's always a go-to person, that's the best listener. And that's what we want to give them, the tools to be able to do that when they get out and have some productivity and contribute. And they want to contribute and stop being a taker. So again, that's my belief about any incarceration time. I only did county jails because I never wanted to be away from drugs that long and risk being away from drugs that long to do something really stupid like rob the damn pharmacy van, when they're delivering the Dilaudid, because that was a good idea. You get caught doing that, you're going to go away, then you can't use drugs anymore. So why would you want to do that? So anyway, that's how my logic thought. I would get somebody else to do it. That's the way I think. Then share it.
Oh, well, you were a smart addict, I guess.
I can't be that. I don't know about smart addict. Smart enough to not self-sabotage to the extent that I've seen other people do. And I got very fortunate, and I also ran fast. So I bolted out of pharmacies just in the nick of time before I would get, collared doing stupid stuff.
Yeah, you were just more of a you just recognized the potential consequences, and you would just send the guy that was dumb enough to go in, not really thinking about them.
Well, I don't know if he was dumb or smart. He just didn't give a care. I had a cousin that was our role model in the family that everybody measured their addiction against, and if you weren't like him, you weren't that bad. Okay, and he was bad. He went to that place in Kentucky for the heroin addicts. It wasn't Leavenworth. What the hell's the name of that place? It was the very, very first. There were two early treatments that the government started back in the 60s for heroin addiction, and he was already doing it then. And I know my father sent him down there. And God, I don't. The name of that place just escapes me, but it's very, very famous. And they actually had started a program down there called Addicts Anonymous. And when you look at the history of the evolution of 12-step work, and there was a fellowship for a brief period of time, but they could never get the egos out of AA and NA to merge, to be one fellowship of Addicts Anonymous. So he was there, and again, when you're doing that as a precedent for your family, and you're the oldest one in the family, the oldest male, and you're running the streets, and you're already getting arrested and doing time and getting out and doing it all over again. If you weren't like him, you were okay.
Right.
You were okay.
Right.
You went to work. You used drugs and you got in trouble, but you weren't like him, and so you were good.
Yeah.
So that's how that went.
There's so many of us that our trip or our distance from getting into treatment or finding 12-step recovery a lot of times is based on looking at somebody else and going, well, at least I'm not as bad as that guy.
Yeah.
And it takes us that much longer to get back in. Oh, man, Jonas, what a roller coaster ride of a story, my brother.
Yeah, it's a great story. It's a lot of fun. It's a good story to talk about.
I love the story of you and your wife. It's just...
Yeah, she loves that one. And it's true. The scary part is, it gets better. So when I go to ask her to marry me, right, because first of all, it was either get married or break up. So we broke up because I couldn't decide if I was really ready, because it was really early in recovery. And I knew there was something wrong with this picture. So I ran away, and I lasted a month. And I went back to chase her down. So first I go to her mother and I asked, she was a single mom, and I go and ask, permission, because my big career move at the time, I'm driving a taxi. That's what I'm doing. And I'm going to go ask her mother if I can marry her daughter. And she looks at me and says, well, whatever, her mother, God bless my mother-in-law. So it's okay, great. And so I go track my bride down, and she's at a dance at the clubhouse. There's a Valentine's Day dance, and I ask her outside to go for a walk, and there's a big full moon. I'm setting the scene like it's a Hollywood thing, and I'm telling you, it was really like this. It's a full moon, and I'm asking her to get married outside an NA clubhouse. Under a full moon, with like a year clean or something. That's how it went.
Oh, and she said yes.
And yeah, she talk about dumb. Wait, what do you do? You drive a taxi? What? How many kids do you have? 3? What? And she didn't care. She really loved me. She really, believed that that's the way it was going to go. And so, I'm telling you, relationships require work, and we worked really, really hard for a really long time to make it successful.
That's beautiful. I love it, man. Absolutely beautiful story. Absolutely beautiful. But again, in that kind of a situation, a lot of it boils down to, especially for women, they're so intuitive. Not always, obviously, but there's an energy there. They're like, this guy's going to do something, right? And you did. I mean, she gambled, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'd say she won.
I was pretty risky. I told her, I said, you ever see me in the bathroom with a needle in my arm, take the money, take the credit cards, and run.
Run. Absolutely. No question about it.
Okay. The hospital my cousin went to was called Lexington.
Ah, okay. I was just pulling it up myself, and I was like...
It's in Kentucky. Okay. Lexington, Kentucky. That's what it was.
The Lexington Drug Treatment Center.
That's right. It was one of the very first ones for that. And that was the early onset of the heroin addiction from the Vietnam War.
Okay.
And so when this is, recycles. If you look at William White as our spokesperson and observer of society and the response of society to the drug addiction, it starts way back when. He wrote a great book called Slaying the Dragon. And it's a history. It's a compendium. It's a history book of America's response to substance abuse dating back to like the 1700s. Fascinating book. And Lexington is in there, obviously, and that's where Addicts Anonymous was mentioned and so forth. William White, and he's got like a website, William White Papers. The guy is prolific. He's a prolific writer. I mean, if there's anybody that's my hero and role model, is that if I could only write the way he does, it's just phenomenal. So this is a great book, and in there it talks about that one particular intervention.
All right. Well, Jonas, it's time to start closing up, buddy. I'm going to ask you some questions about your early recovery, and I want you to respond with inspiring and insightful answers you can share for our newcomers. Are you ready?
Go ahead.
All right. Well, we've already covered 3 of the questions. One of them was what was keeping you from getting clean or staying clean when you first got introduced to recovery. And it was that moment where that guy asked you, come back when you're clean, or told you, come back when you're clean. I'm assuming, right?
Yes, that was a block. But I don't remember. What was keeping me out there was a desire to be numb. My shame, a piece of what I didn't share was my ex-wife's, she has a mental illness. She has a diagnosis, and it was horrific for me to negotiate without drugs, having my children in her custody. And I had no skill set in that, so it kept me using over and over and over, day after day after day, because I was horrified about what could possibly happen to my children's safety. So go and wait, to top it off, my mother bought her the lawyer to make that happen. So you talk about anger and resentment, I was like, you got to be kidding me. You're going to give our children to an active mentally ill individual who's not stable and hurts themselves again, and instead of me who caretakes them while she's in the hospital because I use freaking drugs. Are you all crazy? And they all said, yes, that's what we're doing, and you better deal with it. And I didn't deal with it.
Oh man. Wow. That is absolutely wow. It's tough, man. It's tough. You're dealing with all these feelings and emotions, and you really don't know how you're going to deal with them without drugs.
Or didn't deal with them.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You just kept.
It was drugs or nothing. It was drugs or it was suicide. I mean, it was just horrible. The situation, and she did it decent. I mean, she did the best she could. She was not evil. But she's crazy. And I don't want to say that in a derogatory way. I mean, she has manic episodes and she wouldn't take her medicine, so she wasn't stable. And then all bets are off.
Right.
That was the issue. And I was like, I had no control. I was completely unmanageable, powerless and completely unmanageable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So then number 2, there was another one you covered. And the question is, at what point did you have a spiritual awakening, that aha moment in recovery, when you accepted that you were powerless over drugs and alcohol, but for the first time had developed the hope that you could recover? And you also went through that as well, right? Is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
I was standing at the gate, but I didn't really connect that I was powerless over drugs and alcohol. Everybody knows you're powerless over drugs and alcohol. You just stick them in your body and they change the way that you think and you feel. That's why you use them. So the powerlessness wasn't the issue. I had to learn about unmanageability and what happens with or without drugs and the unmanageability of my life. So I called that episode, that aha moment, if there's such an epiphany of I was done. The obsession to use was gone. It was lifted, and now it was just a matter of doing the footwork. So that's where it was, and I had a series of those going forward.
Right.
Because they seemed to be everywhere after that.
Absolutely. And then you also mentioned, I always ask, do you have a favorite book that you would recommend to our newcomers?
Well, I mentioned that Slaying the Dragon, the compendium. That's a history book of America's response. And then, of course, there was all I did was I got kicked out of the treatment centers because I only wanted to borrow the counselor's books. Can I borrow that book? Can I borrow that book? And they said, no, you can't have that book yet. You go to this. I'm like, why can't I read the book? Was it in English? Or is it in another language? Why can't I have the book? And so I would fight with them, and they would say, you need to move on. You can't. So I said, well, what is that book? And I wanted to learn. I was thirsty. I was like, so anyway, look over their shoulder while they were talking to me and looking at their book rack.
You had the oddest experiences getting sober, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I listened to all this bullshit in the meetings. This guy would show up and he's like, my name is so-and-so and I ain't hit anybody today. I'm like, what are you talking about? What kind of program is this? I didn't hit anybody today. I think he still carried his gun with him, though. One of those motorcycle guys.
Oh, yeah.
What the fuck? What? Then I went to one of these other meetings, and they said, you can't share that here. You got to go to another fellowship. I looked at it, and I was like, what do you mean? This is everybody. What are you talking about? I left the meeting. I never went back there.
It's unbelievable, man. It's
some old dude said that out loud. I sat in the van. They would take me to this main meeting, and I would sit in the van the whole time. I was like, I'm not going in there.
No.
And I don't even want to. I'm angry at you. You're taking my money to give me something that I can get free in the community. Where's the freaking door? Get me out of here.
Oh, my God. Absolutely. Priceless.
Yeah.
Okay. So number 4, what is the best suggestion you have ever received?
Stay teachable.
Beautiful. I love it, man. I love it. And if you could give our newcomers only one suggestion, what would it be?
The decision you made to get clean, make that same one every morning when you wake up.
Man, gold. I love it. Wow. Jonas, man, this has been an amazing interview.
Thank you so much. It's always fun to talk about something you're passionate about. I did one of these last week, and the guy says, well, what do you do for fun? I said, I'm doing it, bro. This is it. This is what I do. This is my fun. This is the best.
Well, tell our listeners what's the best way for them to reach you, to find the Flex Deck, your website, every way that they can get in touch with you.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. So again, my name's Jonas. My professional pseudonym is Dr. Harold Jonas, and I have a number of different websites. There's Sober.com, which is, of course, the easiest one and the best brand on the internet to find your best clinical and financial fit. There's Jonas@SoberNetwork.com. That's an email that is very received, and I'm very responsive. We've got Facebook pages and Twitter at RecZone, for instance. I got a direct cell phone number, which I'll give to everybody, and anybody's welcome to call at 561-441-5004. And, of course, if you want to look at the app, which please do, Flex Deck, DEK, flexdeck.com. FlexDeck.net. And from there, you can look at the app, download it at the App Store or the Play Store. FlexDeck Wellness Edition is currently in the market and available. And then the Mat Edition will be rolling out November 1st. So you'll have those two to choose from. And so those two apps are going to be there. Again, the wellness management model is in there now. FlexDeck, FlexDeck.
Beautiful, beautiful. Excellent. All right. Well, we have now reached the end of our show. Thanks for joining us. And as we say here in Costa Rica, pura vida.
Pura vida.
Thank you for joining us on the SHAIR Recovery Podcast. To check out the show notes page on this interview or to thank our guests for sharing their story, go to www.theshairpodcast.com. While you're on the website, don't forget to sign up for our free newsletter to stay up to date on the latest news, podcasts, and interviews. Want to be one of our guests and share your story? Then go to our website and click on the Share Your Story button. We share our inspiring recovery stories every Tuesday, so subscribe to our show on iTunes or Stitcher Radio to get your free weekly download. We'll see you then. The opinions shared on this show reflect those of the individual speaker and not of any 12